We don't have much time, so I'm gonna make this quick. This world is not as it seems. After spending millennia under the rule of corrupt and repressive leaders, we have been blinded from the true nature of our own condition and cut off from our nature. And as such, our culture has developed a false consciousness. Limiting dogmatic belief cuts us off from the flow of life and removes our agency. Now, as our civilization hurtles towards the brink of annihilation, we have no choice but to awaken to the reality of our situation and take responsibility for our future. Nobody will do this for us. We must come together to build the world that we desire. You have been activated as an agent of the Global Consciousness Raising Project. Initiate the download of the revelation. Hey, it's Liam, back at it again, bringing it down to earth a little bit. Not everything has to be all serious and apocalyptic all the time, Phosphoros. Anyways, today I want to talk about the crisis facing our world through the model of the Four Noble Truths of Buddhism. That is, the truth of suffering, the truth of the origin of suffering, the truth of liberation from suffering, and the truth of the path to liberation from suffering. With this model, we'll build a framework for understanding what ails us and how we can go about remedying it, both on an individual and a collective level. I chose the framework of Buddhism for this video because it helps orient our understanding of our experience within a coherent dialectical perspective, allowing us to formulate a comprehensive, revolutionary framework. Without further ado, let's jump in. All is not well and good here in the year 2009. The illusion of progress has fallen away and the empire rots from within. We face incomprehensible poverty, war, famine, oppression, and environmental catastrophe under global capitalism. Surely something is not right. Surely something is rotten at the core that eats away at us every minute of every day. And no matter where you look, there you will find suffering. When the young Prince Siddhartha walked the streets and saw the suffering, illness, and death of the people around him, he could not mindlessly return to the comforts of royal life. Once he had gone beyond the palace walls and seen the truth, once he had realized the inevitability of suffering, he could not deny or ignore it and sought instead to end it. Thus it must be with us. The illusion of our perfect world, a shining democracy, a land of freedom, crumbles before us, and we are left with the brutal truth of our situation. The cruelty unleashed upon our world is incomprehensible and inescapable. Whether you look at the never-ending imperial wars, mass incarceration and forced labor, staggeringly violent economic inequality, factory farming, environmental destruction, or even just the dull malaise we all face on a daily basis. The extent of this suffering is so horrifying, most people just prefer to shut it off and ignore it, and instead focusing just on our own situation and the good we can do in our own lives. However, without acknowledging this pain, our understanding and our impact will always be fleeting, shallow, and illusory. We cannot achieve any real change until we acknowledge the truth of suffering. Often what is most painful to face is exactly what we need to confront in order to proceed. It's not until we've recognized the problem exists that we can even begin to come to a solution. Recognizing our own suffering and trauma is the start of the healing process. Recognizing it in others creates empathy. So let us proceed with full knowledge of the exploitation, oppression, and alienation of us by a system claiming to provide the best for all while committing mass atrocities in our name. The truth of suffering wakes us up to the true nature of our world once we recognize our origin, which brings us to know thy enemy, they say. That gray evil that looms over us all. It traps us in prison cells of tiny little cookie-cutter boxes, constantly running us on a treadmill of debt and desperation, infecting our minds with jealousy, resentment, and bigotry, and turning us against each other for profit, stripping us of our very souls and replacing them with a number. sacrificing our planet on the altar of greed. There is no low which will not be stooped to in a system that values accumulation of wealth and power over freedom and even life itself. This soulless machine will not stop until it has cannibalized our planet and sold it back to us as a product. This is our great nemesis, which has wormed its way into our hearts in the halls of power. As for the second noble truth of Buddhism, the cause of suffering is clinging and attachment. We forget who we are. We want things to be one way and not another. We're constantly worried we won't get what we want. And even when we do, it doesn't bring us lasting satisfaction. We attach our identity to arbitrary and limited circumstances. Our name, location, what we do for money, possessions, status, relationships. Though this suffering has been prevalent throughout human history, I can see no clearer manifestation and embodiment of it than our neoliberal late-stage capitalism. That is no accident. Capitalism is founded on a system of relations that interpolates and objectifies everything within it. Nature becomes a commodity, and a price is even put on human life. We are kept in a state of dull panic by this environment so as to more effectively appropriate our attention and labor for profit. Our identities are bought and sold by marketers and the media. All this leads to a constant and ubiquitous state of want and fear. We are pushed away from each other by threat of competition. Propagandists and demagogues demonize, dehumanize, and sow discord as to prevent any opposition. Capitalism feeds off this suffering. It is its fuel. These kleshas, desire, aversion, and ignorance, are built into the very structure of capitalism. Ignorance causes us to seek a truth outside of ourselves. Desire compels us to maximize our gains, and aversion steers us to minimize our losses. These same mechanisms of existential suffering are the levers that capitalism uses to control our behavior and shape the world. It abstracts us from the world, divorcing us from the here and now in favor of maximizing our self-interest, whatever that's supposed to mean. History replaced by corporate-friendly market speak. The capitalist idea that an individual is a separate atomized entity is the illusory basis of our ignorance. How can you maximize your interest at the expense of others when others are included in yourself? But I'm getting ahead of myself. Now, whether you believe that capitalism is actually a manifestation of these timeless spiritual maladies, or it just happens to work on patterns that align very close with them, it's hard to imagine a capitalism without these traits. It just wouldn't work. Suffering and oppression, exploitation of labor, all of these are the fuel for this infinite growth machine. And if we don't stop it, it'll gobble us all. All of this leads to the conclusion there is a need for revolution, to liberate ourselves from these unjust systems and root out our suffering at its cause. It is time to break the chains. We must slouch off this rough beast and pave a new way forward. Our task may seem impossible, but there is no liberation without suffering, no resolution without conflict. Now that we see our pain for what it is and have identified the cause, it's possible to imagine a world without it. We are the end of tyranny, suffering, and oppression. We will never give up or concede. I would rather die than admit defeat. In the fight, we will find freedom, joy, and liberation, and when we do, we've already won. Now, I know so far this discussion has been pretty bleak. The violence and devastation are so severe, it's sometimes necessary to block it out just to get through the day. Yet even now, know that not all is lost. The third noble truth of Buddhism names the cessation, the end of this suffering, and reveals to us an existence beyond our compartmentalized, alienated, and limited experience of life as we know it. The suffering and oppression we face, like all else, is only temporary. Not to downplay it or anything, because it still sucks, right? It's still fucking awful. There is a way to end this suffering, not just for ourselves, but for our whole planet. Of course, we can't prevent all loss and everything bad from happening. That would be a fool's errand. In fact, it is letting go of grasping things outside of our control that we find liberation. We've been squeezing the sand in our palms so tightly it runs through our fingers when it could have just held it with an open palm. You just hold the sand with an open palm and clean your room.
Stand up straight with your shoulders back.
This metaphor applies not only to our individual experience, but also to the way we organize production and governance in our society. Capitalism is so focused on defining what is yours and what is mine, all our desires become sublimated into the mechanistic functions of gaining profits and avoiding losses. And for many, this is enforced under threat of starvation or imprisonment. Thus, we are pushed to think and act in only certain ways that serve to tighten our palm, and yet we wonder why these things never seem to get better. Buddhism shows us another way. When we release this gripping and join the dance of life, what was tedious becomes joyous, and where there was scarcity, there is now abundance. There is no good reason why, with the vast wealth and resources of our civilization, for anyone on Earth to go hungry, without medical care, or lack anything needed to fulfill their material or subjective needs. The Earth is plentiful and provides for all when we treat it with respect. As it says in the good old bread book, the fruits of the earth belong to all, and the earth itself belongs to no one. We have starved our fellow human and eviscerated our planet with these violent systems of control and appropriation, which none of us agreed to, yet all of us are bound. But it does not have to be this way. When we let go of limiting definitions of who we are and what we can be, when we share instead of clutching our pearls, we discover new ways of comprehending our experience and organizing our society. It's no secret to those who know me, I'm an advocate of anarcho-communism. Anarcho, meaning the abolishment of unjust hierarchy, and communism, meaning the collective control of the means of production. In this paradigm, the power to make decisions rests democratically with the people impacted, rather than private capital or the state. I believe this paradigm has the power to free us from suffering and oppression, heal our wounded spirit and planet, and unleash a powerful new embodiment of our potential, allowing us new freedom of expression and of experience beyond even our current comprehension. I believe that not only is this revolution possible, it is necessary for life to continue and for us to avoid our mutually assured destruction at the hands of multinational capitalism. So how do we get from here to there? That is the subject of the fourth and final revolutionary truth, the truth of the way to liberation from suffering. It is on this topic we find so much of both the spiritual and political literature. Buddha laid out the Noble Eightfold Path, guidelines and disciplines to align each aspect of life to the cause. It is through this path of liberation we transform ourselves and become occult revolutionaries. Right thoughts, right words, right actions, the subjective affects the material and vice versa. By exhaustively and creatively exploring each of these tactics, we gradually develop a comprehensive strategy for internal enlightenment and collective liberation. This is the focus of my work. Revolution starts within each of us, but will not be complete until we come together in order to accomplish our great work. This may be difficult, dangerous, and continuous work, and I certainly don't have all the answers. It's only by pooling our knowledge, effort, and capabilities and engaging on a path of discovery and improvement that we may become revolutionaries the world needs. This video is coming to an end, but our journey is only just beginning. And I want to assure you, no matter who you are or what you're going through, we can do this. This is no pipe dream. What's truly unrealistic is the notion that this hyper-exploitative form of capitalism can continue indefinitely and result in anything other than total planetary destruction. The time is now. Never has there been a better moment for us to imagine a world we want to live in and build the movement to make it happen. We're making the climb to the next stage of our evolutionary journey, both as individuals and as a collective. It might not be easy, but damn if it isn't one hell of a ride. Let's do it.
Our mission is revolution. Our plan? Simple, yet comprehensive. As dedication and discernment grows, every thought, word, and action gains power and precision. We will be confronted from obstacles within and without, each trial making us stronger and bringing us closer together. Each boundary we tear down, giving us access to new knowledge and abilities. United in this struggle, our power multiplies exponentially. There is nothing we cannot do together. Thus ends the transmission of the four truths of revolution. This has been Phosphoros of the Temple 888, bearer of the occult revolutionary current. May these words light a fire within us and unite our hearts and minds in our common cause.
Hey everybody, this is Liam. Thanks for watching. Funny story about this one. I actually had written most of the script like 3 months ago, and I just found it the other day, and I'm like, why not? Let's do it. Of course, halfway through the shooting, my freaking mic falls off, so that's just why a lot of this was done in voiceover. But we're making it work. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with this one, despite all of the technical difficulties, and I'm having a lot of fun experimenting with types of videos. So let me know what you think in comparison to the last ones, where you think I should go moving forward. I've got a lot of fun stuff coming down the pipeline, a few new shows, blogs that I've been doing, so stay tuned. Thanks again. Make sure you check us out on Patreon, follow us on Twitter, do the things, and we will see you next time. This has been the Warlock Phosphoros. Peace out.